Even more than previous years, the iPhone 16 Pro lineup is kind of like Apple's love letter to people who love to take photos and videos. I've been shooting with this phone for the past 2 or 3 weeks, and I've got a ton of samples to share with you. So what we're gonna do here today is we're gonna sit down and analyze them in depth. I'm gonna go over everything that this phone is good at and what it's not so good at when it comes to capturing photos and video. Let's start off easy with the daytime photos. It's probably not gonna come as a shocker to pretty much any of you, but almost all of the photos that I shot outside during the day came out really nicely. I like shooting the Supreme Court downtown a lot because it's got such nice contrast, and when the sun goes down, it highlights the building this like beautiful wash of gold and yellow. It's too bad that there's a telephone wire in the way, but I don't think it ruins the photo or anything. What you'll notice throughout all of these photos is that the 5x camera is a tiny bit less sharp than the photo shot on the main camera or the ultra wide. And that's because the 5x camera is still only a 12 megapixel sensor, whereas the other two are 48 megapixel sensors. Downtown St. John's, where I live, is a very colorful place, and that's why I shoot a lot of the buildings down here. The iPhone 16 Pro does a really nice job of resolving that color in a way that's really pleasing to look at, honestly. There's nothing I can pick out here that I would deem a negative per se, at least so far. There were lots of really colorful fall displays in some of the windows, and those colors really pop. They're extremely vibrant, and I can't remember if they looked that vibrant in real life, but regardless, I really like how the colors look in these photos. I also saw a beautiful Mariner Blue NA Miata when I was downtown as well, but again, if we zoom in a little bit here, the image falls apart pretty quickly in the sharpness department since it was also shot on that 5x camera. I also took some shots of my own NA Miata, and here's where the photographic styles feature came in handy. I really loved this shot. There's a ton of contrast, the headlights weren't overexposed, and there's just a slight tinge of color in the sky. Without doing any editing, I started flicking through those different photographic styles, and I landed on gold, which gave this just that little bit more pop to the sky and changed the hue of the headlights slightly. Moving inside now, you're gonna start to see the weakness of having a large sensor. When you have subjects like this that are close to the camera, what you'll notice is that only part of the subject is in focus. The front and middle of the bowl is in focus, but as we get closer to the back of the bowl, it just dips out of focus entirely. You also lose just a little bit of sharpness when shooting indoors, presumably because there's some grain present from the lack of light, and the iPhone's using like a denoise filter or something, which reduces that sharpness a little bit. Here's another example of that large sensor working against me. I wanted to take a quick shot of my 3 Canon film cameras, and all I got perfectly in focus was the made in Japan text on my 100 to 300 mil lens. None of the camera bodies or any of the background was in focus. Now that can be a good thing when you want some nice background blur, but it usually ends up working against you when you're just trying to take a basic photo. If your subject isn't close to the camera, things turn out just fine, as long as there's a decent amount of light. When you start to lose the light, some different issues crop up. Now before I talk about that, I've got a load of extra daylight and interior photos that I took with this phone, so what I'm gonna do is show you some of those extras while I thank the sponsor of this video, Notion. I use Notion quite literally every day for both work and for my YouTube channel. Notion has just recently launched the new Notion AI, and it is incredibly useful for idea generation. I've talked about using Notion in this context before, but as a D&D dungeon master, the new Notion AI is such a good idea generator. In just a few words, I can ask it to come up with plot hooks for a new campaign I'm planning, and it does a fantastic job. One of these I'm probably actually gonna use, but I'm not gonna say which because my players sometimes watch my videos and I don't wanna spoil anything for them. While I'm writing, I can even just chat with the AI to ask what the best practices are for keeping players engaged while in a combat encounter. For my YouTube video scripts, the new Notion AI is the perfect tool to check my grammar and make sure I'm explaining things in a simple, easy to understand way. One thing I've found really useful is the summarization feature, where I can just upload PDFs and have it give me a brief summarized version of the document, which saves a lot of time. They've even got Google Drive integration now, making document searching a whole lot easier. You can get started with Notion for free today and unlock the new Notion AI for only $10 a month by clicking on the link in the video description down below. All right, the low light iPhone woes. I don't know why, but Apple still hasn't figured out a way to get rid of that annoying little lens flare that pops up when shooting in areas that have direct light sources in the frame. This tiny little green laser dot thing has driven me crazy over the years. The shot itself is fine. The colors are pretty vivid for a dark parking garage at night, but those little dots really do bug me. Anyway, most of the other shots I took at night were actually kind of solid. We got some spooky looking fog one night that made for some really, really great moody shots. And then in that same night, the northern lights came out to play. Now, the crazy thing about this is that these lights in the sky were actually not visible at all to the naked eye. We could only see them on the iPhone after taking 3-second exposures in a pitch black wooded area. And we got some great shots. None of the photos in this video are edited and they still look awesome. Again, these aren't the sharpest photos in the world, but I mean, with the amount of light we were working with, AKA almost none, I didn't expect them to be. All right, portrait mode. Overall, the shots I took in portrait mode came out decent. I don't think Apple has made any meaningful strides over the past few years with things like edge detection. You can still see in some of these photos my hair or beard just gets blurred out like the background in certain places, but still, most of these photos are just fine for social media. It also takes great shots of pets. Monty looks incredibly happy here after running around in the backyard for half an hour with a stick. What I was most impressed with is the video on this phone. That seems to be the case almost every year with the iPhone, but sometimes I forget just how good the video quality is until I capture something. This right here is another reason why so many people love downtown St. John's. To watch a massive cruise ship like this just sail by so close to the waterfront is amazing, and the iPhone 16 Pro did such a great job with capturing it. I kept switching between the ultra wide, the main camera, the 2x crop, and the telephoto, but my favorite point of the video is definitely right here with the 5x camera. That little pan up to the smokestacks and how the heat from them kind of distorts the background behind it, I love that. Also, the seagulls here were definitely paid actors, considering the logo of the cruise ship was a seagull. Really kind of cool to see those fly through there. I got my fiance to shoot some video of us in the Miata too. Obviously, this was not an easy task given we were driving on a rough road in a tiny sports car, but I think the stabilization did pretty well, and the colors came out nicely too. There's really nothing like a beautiful fall day with the top down and a convertible. It's one of my favorite feelings. You got wind in your hair, there's fall leaves everywhere. You just can't beat it. The only time I was a little bit disappointed by the video on this phone was when you start to lose the light. This was shot after the sun went down over the hill, and you can see a ton of artifacting come in as I try to walk while recording video. And then when you switch to the ultra wide, it's even worse. It just becomes completely unusable. But I think we'll end on a high note, and that's gonna be the 4K 120 FPS slow-mo that's new to the 16 Pro this year. This was a part of the reason why Monty was so happy earlier. Nothing makes a golden retriever happier than running out of the woods with a huge stick. Overall, the iPhone 16 Pro camera system is impressive. It's not an enormous change over the previous generation, but I'm still happy nonetheless. Hope you liked the video. Thanks for watching, and as always, have a great day.